The hospital corridor smelled like disinfectant and dread. I sat in a plastic chair at Cleveland Clinic, watching nurses rush past like ghosts in scrubs, trying to remember the last time I had prayed. Somewhere behind those double doors, my 8-year-old grandson Lucas was hooked up to machines, his little body fighting a battle no child should ever have to face. Leukemia. The word had hit me like a sledgehammer 3 weeks ago when my son Mitchell finally picked up the phone. My name is Harold Brennan. I am 63 years old, retired from the GM plant in Toledo after 31 years on the assembly line. I live on $2,100 a month between my pension and Social Security, in a 2-bedroom house I bought in 1989 for $67,000. Not much to show for 6 decades of living, but it is mine. Paid off. Nobody can take it from me. My son Mitchell took himself from me 15 years ago, right after the divorce. He was 20 then, old enough to choose sides. He chose his mother. I had not seen Lucas in person since his 4th birthday. 4 years. My own grandson and I had watched him grow up through photographs posted on social media, through secondhand stories from my sister Donna, through the silence that stretched between me and my only child like an ocean neither of us knew how to cross. Then, 3 weeks ago, my phone rang at 6 in the morning. Dad. Mitchell's voice cracked on that single syllable. I need you. Those 3 words erased 15 years of silence. Lucas needs a bone marrow transplant. The doctors say a family match is his best chance. I already got tested. Connie got tested. Neither of us is compatible. They said a grandparent might work. They said sometimes the older generation carries markers that skip. I was in my truck and driving to Cleveland before he finished the sentence. Now I sat in this waiting room, watching the clock tick past midnight, waiting for test results that could mean the difference between life and death for a boy I barely knew but loved with every fiber of my being. Mitchell was here too, sitting across the room with his wife Jenna. He looked older than 35. Gray at the temples, shadows under his eyes, the weight of the world pressing down on his shoulders. We had not spoken much since I arrived. What was there to say? 15 years of silence could not be filled with small talk. Jenna was the one who had kept me updated over the years. Little messages here and there, photos of Lucas on his first day of school, a video of his little league game. She had done it behind Mitchell's back at first, then more openly as the years passed. She was a good woman. Too good for the cold distance that had grown between this family. The door opened. A doctor stepped out, clipboard in hand, face unreadable. Mr. Brennan? Harold Brennan? I stood up so fast my knees cracked. That is me. We need to speak with you privately. Something in her tone made my stomach clench. I followed her down a hallway to a small office, where 2 other doctors were waiting. One was a woman in her 50s, the other a younger man with tired eyes. Please, sit down. The first doctor gestured to a chair. I am Dr. Evelyn Marsh, head of oncology. This is Dr. Samuel Nguyen, our hematologist, and Dr. Patricia Rowland, genetic specialist. Genetic specialist. The words hung in the air like a warning. Mr. Brennan, Dr. Marsh began carefully, we ran your blood work for compatibility with Lucas. The results came back with some unexpected findings. Am I a match or not? The 3 doctors exchanged glances. It was Dr. Rowland who spoke next, her voice gentle but firm. Mr. Brennan, according to these results, you cannot be Mitchell's biological father. The room tilted. I gripped the armrest of my chair to keep from falling. That is impossible. Mitchell is my son. I was there when he was born. I raised him for 20 years. I understand this is difficult to hear. Dr. Rowland opened a folder, showing me charts and numbers that meant nothing to my spinning mind. We ran the test 3 times to be certain. There is no genetic link between you and Mitchell. Biologically speaking, you could not have fathered him. 35 years. 35 years I had believed Mitchell was my son. His first steps, his first words, teaching him to throw a baseball, holding him when he cried after his grandmother passed. 35 years of being a father. And none of it was real? No. That was wrong. All of it was real. every single moment. What does this mean for Lucas? My voice came out steadier than I expected. Unfortunately, it means you are not a viable donor. Bone marrow transplants require close genetic matching. Since you share no genetic material with Mitchell, you cannot help Lucas directly. Dr. Marsh leaned forward. Mr. Brennan, do you have any idea who Mitchell's biological father might be? I stared at her. The question she was really asking echoed in my skull like a gunshot. Who had my wife been sleeping with 36 years ago? I need to tell you about Connie. We met in 1984 at a company picnic. She was 22, I was 23, and she was the most beautiful woman I had ever seen. Dark hair, green eyes, a laugh that made you feel like you were the only person in the room. I fell hard and fast. We got married in 1986, bought our little house in Toledo, started building a life. I worked the line at GM, 50 hours a week, sometimes 60 during overtime season. Connie worked as a secretary at an insurance company downtown. We were happy. At least I thought we were. Mitchell was born in November 1989. I remember holding him in the delivery room, this tiny red-faced miracle, and thinking my life finally made sense. Everything I had worked for, every double shift, every sacrifice, it all had a purpose now. I was a father. For the first 10 years, we were a family. Little league games, camping trips, Sunday dinners at my mother's house. Normal life, good life. Then Connie started changing. It was subtle at first. New clothes, new haircut, new friends I had never met. She started working late, taking business trips that never quite added up. I told myself I was being paranoid. Told myself that marriages went through phases. In 1999, she sat me down at the kitchen table and told me she wanted a divorce. I asked her if there was someone else. She looked me dead in the eye and said no. Said she had just fallen out of love, that we had grown apart, that she wanted more from life than I could give her. I believed her. God help me, I believed her. The divorce was finalized in 2000. Mitchell was 10. Connie got the house, primary custody, and child support that ate half my paycheck. I got every other weekend and the growing suspicion that I had been a fool. 6 months after the divorce was final, Connie married Raymond Hartwell. Raymond was a regional manager for a pharmaceutical company, drove a Mercedes, lived in a house with a pool. They had been seeing each other for 2 years before she asked me for the divorce. 2 years. Mitchell would have been 8 when it started. But that was not the affair that produced my son. The math did not work. Raymond entered the picture too late, which meant there had been someone else. Someone before Raymond. Someone I never knew about. Someone from 36 years ago, before Mitchell was even born. Connie had been lying to me from the very beginning. I walked back to the waiting room on legs that felt like they belonged to someone else. Mitchell looked up when I approached, hope and fear fighting for control of his face. Well, are you a match? I looked at my son. At this man I had raised, loved, sacrificed for. At this stranger who shared none of my blood. No, I am not a match. His face crumpled. Damn it. Damn it. He slammed his fist against the wall. What are we going to do? What the hell are we going to do? There is something else. I kept my voice flat, controlled, even though everything inside me was screaming. Something the doctors found. What are you talking about? Your mother needs to be here for this. Mitchell stared at me, confusion replacing despair. My mother? What does she have to do with anything? Call her. Tell her to come to the hospital. Now. Connie Hartwell arrived at 2:47 inches the morning, dressed like she was attending a charity gala instead of a family crisis. Designer coat, diamond earrings, the subtle smell of expensive perfume. Raymond was not with her. Apparently, hospital waiting rooms were beneath him. She looked at me with barely concealed contempt. Harold, I did not expect to see you here. Lucas is my grandson. Biologically speaking, he is barely connected to you at all. You are Mitchell's father. That makes you what, exactly? Background? 15 years of silence, and this was what she had to say. Actually, I said slowly, That is exactly what we need to discuss. I told them everything. The test results. The genetic impossibility. The 35-year lie. I watched Connie's face as I spoke. Watched the color drain from her cheeks. Watched her carefully constructed world begin to crumble. Mitchell stood frozen, his eyes darting between me and his mother. What is he talking about, Mom? What the hell is he talking about? Connie's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. She looked at me, then at Mitchell, then back at me. This is ridiculous. A mistake. Those tests are wrong all the time. They ran it 3 times. I held her gaze, refusing to look away. No mistakes, no contamination. According to science, I cannot be Mitchell's biological father. So I have to ask you, Connie, who is? The waiting room was silent except for the distant beeping of monitors and the hum of fluorescent lights. Jenna had her hand over her mouth, tears streaming down her face. Mitchell was shaking. Mom. His voice cracked. Tell me he is lying. Tell me this is some kind of sick joke? Connie was crying now, too. Mascara running down her cheeks, the polished facade finally breaking. I was 23. Her voice came out as a whisper. You and I had only been dating for 6 months, Harold. I was not sure about us yet. There was someone else. A man I had been seeing before we met. Who? His name was Dennis Lockwood. He worked at the insurance company with me. We had a brief affair right after you and I started dating. I ended it when I realized I wanted to be with you, but by then I was already pregnant. You knew. My voice was barely audible. You knew from the beginning that Mitchell might not be mine. I did not know for certain. I convinced myself he was yours. You were there. You were stable. You were the one I wanted to build a life with. So I chose to believe. You chose to lie. I chose to give my son a father. Mitchell made a sound somewhere between a sob and a scream. He turned and punched the wall so hard his knuckles split open. 35 years. His voice was raw. 35 years, and my whole life is a lie. No. I stepped toward him, ignoring the blood dripping from his hand. No, Mitchell. Your life is not a lie. I raised you. I taught you to ride a bike. I sat with you through chicken pox and bad dreams and your first heartbreak. I was there for every single moment that mattered. That was real. All of it was real. But you are not my father. The words hit me like a knife. But I did not flinch. Maybe not biologically. But in every way that counts, I am your father. And right now, none of that matters. What matters is Lucas. What matters is finding this Dennis Lockwood and seeing if he can help save your son. I turned back to Connie. Where is he now? She was still crying, but something had shifted in her expression. Fear, maybe. Or shame. I do not know. We lost touch decades ago. He could be anywhere. He could be dead for all I know. Then you better start looking. Because if he is Lucas's biological great-grandfather, he might be the only person who can save him. The next 12 hours were a blur of phone calls, internet searches, and desperate prayers. Connie worked her contacts, called old colleagues from the insurance company, dug through boxes of papers she had stored in her basement for decades. Mitchell refused to look at her, refused to speak to her, but he did not stop her from trying to find the man who might be his real father. I sat with Jenna in the hospital cafeteria, drinking coffee that tasted like battery acid, trying to make sense of a world that had tilted completely off its axis. I am sorry, Harold. Jenna's voice was soft. I am so sorry you found out this way. I shook my head. Do not be sorry for me. Be sorry for Lucas. Be sorry for Mitchell. I have had 35 years with my son. Whatever the truth is, nobody can take those years away from me. She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. He loves you, you know. Mitchell, he has never stopped loving you, even when he was too stubborn to show it. Then why did he cut me off? For 15 years, Jenna. 15 years of silence. She sighed. Connie convinced him. You were the reason the marriage fell apart. That you were cold, distant. That you drove her away. He was angry. Confused. He wanted someone to blame, and she gave him me. She gave him you." Jenna met my eyes. "But he knows the truth now. He has always known, deep down. He was just too proud to admit it." At 4:32 that afternoon, Connie found him. Dennis Lockwood, 71 years old, living in a nursing home in Akron, about 40 minutes from the hospital. He had suffered a stroke 2 years ago, limited mobility, but still mentally sharp, still alive. And according to the preliminary records Connie had managed to dig up, he had never married, never had children, except, possibly, for Mitchell. The drive to Akron was the longest 40 minutes of my life. Mitchell insisted on coming, even though he could barely look at me. Connie wanted to join us, but Mitchell shut that down with a single word: no. So it was just the two of us, father and son. Or whatever we were now. We did not speak for the first 20 minutes. The silence was thick enough to choke on. Then Mitchell said quietly, "I remember when you taught me to drive." I glanced at him. "What?" "I was 15. Mom wanted to hire an instructor, said you did not have the patience, but you took me out every Sunday for 3 months. Never once yelled at me, even when I nearly ran us into a ditch. I remember, you were terrified. I was terrible. But you kept showing up. Every single Sunday. That is what fathers do." He was quiet for a moment. Then, "I am sorry, Dad. For the last 15 years. For believing her, for shutting you out." I kept my eyes on the road, but I reached over and put my hand on his shoulder. "You were protecting yourself. I understand that. I wasted so much time. Then let us not waste any more." The nursing home was called Sunrise Gardens, a pale yellow building surrounded by carefully maintained lawns and empty benches. We signed in at the front desk and were led to Dennis Lockwood's room by a nurse named Patricia who smiled too much and spoke too loudly. Dennis was sitting by the window when we walked in, a thin man with white hair and watery blue eyes. He looked up when we entered, confusion flickering across his face. "Can I help you?" I stepped forward. "Mr. Lockwood, my name is Harold Brennan. This is my son Mitchell. We are here because of Connie Hartwell. You knew her as Connie Palmer." Recognition sparked in his eyes. "Connie! Good Lord! I have not heard that name in decades!" Mitchell moved to stand beside me. "She told us about you, about your relationship, about what happened in 1989. Dennis's face went pale. He looked from Mitchell to me, then back to Mitchell, studying his features with an intensity that made my stomach turn. My God. His voice was barely a whisper. "You look just like my brother did at your age." So it was true. After 35 years, I finally had confirmation. Mitchell was not my biological son, and somehow, impossibly, I did not feel devastated. I felt free. "Mr. Lockwood," I said, "Mitchell has a son, an 8-year-old boy named Lucas. He is very sick. He needs a bone marrow transplant, and we are running out of options. If you are Mitchell's biological father, there is a chance you could be a match." Dennis stared at us. "You want me to get tested? We are asking you to consider it. Lucas does not have much time." The old man was silent for a long moment. Then he looked at Mitchell. Really looked at him, and I saw something shift in his expression. "I never knew." His voice cracked. "I never knew she was pregnant. If I had known—" "It does not matter now," Mitchell said. "What matters is my son." Dennis nodded slowly. "Then I will do it. Whatever you need, I will do it." The next 48 hours were a marathon of tests, consultations, and waiting. Dennis Lockwood, despite his age and health issues, was approved for preliminary testing. The doctors were cautious but hopeful. Sometimes, they said, genetic matches appeared in the strangest places. Sometimes the universe found a way. I stayed at the hospital the entire time. Mitchell stayed too. We talked more in those 2 days than we had in the previous 15 years combined. About the past, about Connie, about all the things we should have said but never did. He told me about his life. About his job as an accountant. About meeting Jenna. About the day Lucas was born. "I was terrified," he said. "Absolutely terrified. I kept thinking, what if I mess this up? What if I am not good enough? I smiled. I thought the same thing when you were born. Really? Really. Every father does. The good ones, anyway. He was quiet for a moment. Then, you were good enough, Dad. More than good enough. I am sorry I ever made you doubt that. At 7:15 on the morning of the third day, Dr. Marsh came to find us in the waiting room. We have the results, she said. Mr. Lockwood is a match. Mitchell collapsed into Jenna's arms, sobbing with relief. I stood there, frozen, unable to process what I was hearing. The surgery is scheduled for tomorrow morning. Dr. Marsh was smiling now, genuine warmth in her eyes. Mr. Lockwood is eager to help. He said, and I quote, "It's about time I did something useful with this old body." I walked to the window and looked out at the Cleveland skyline, watching the sun rise over the city. Behind me, I could hear my son crying, my daughter-in-law whispering words of comfort. And somewhere in this hospital, a 71-year-old stranger was preparing to save my grandson's life. The surgery took 9 hours. I sat in the waiting room with Mitchell, Jenna, and yes, even Connie. She had shown up that morning, subdued and humble in a way I had never seen before. "Harold," she sat down next to me, keeping her voice low. "I know nothing I say can make up for what I did, but I want you to know that I am sorry. Truly sorry." I looked at her. At this woman I had loved, married, built a life with. At this stranger who had lied to me for 35 years. "Why did you do it?" She was quiet for a long moment. "Because I was scared. I was young and scared, and I did not want to raise a child alone. You were stable, dependable, kind. You would be a good father. I knew that even then. So you used me." Yes, she did not try to deny it. "I used you. And in doing so, I gave my son the best father he could have had. That does not make it right. But it is the truth." I turned back to the window. "Mitchell needed a father. You gave him one. I cannot regret that, Connie, no matter how much I want to." She nodded slowly. Tears were running down her face again, but she did not wipe them away. "I wasted so many years being angry at you for things you never did. I blamed you for the divorce, for my own unhappiness. I was wrong. Yes. You were. Thank you for being here. For Lucas, for Mitchell, for all of it." I did not respond. There was nothing left to say. Dr. Marsh emerged from the operating room at 6:47 that evening, exhaustion etched into every line of her face. The transplant was successful. Both patients are stable. Lucas will need extensive recovery time, but the early signs are very promising. Mitchell let out a sound that was half laugh, half sob. He grabbed me in a hug so tight I could barely breathe. "Thank you, Dad. Thank you for finding him. Thank you for saving my son." I held my son, no matter what any test said, and let myself breathe for the first time in days. We did it together. 6 months have passed since the surgery. Lucas is thriving. His doctors say the transplant took beautifully. He is back in school, back on his Little League team, back to being a normal 8-year-old boy who thinks his grandpa is the coolest person in the world. Dennis Lockwood and I have become unlikely friends. I visit him at Sunrise Gardens every other week, and we play cards and talk about life. He has met Lucas twice now. Carefully supervised visits that Jenna arranges with the sensitivity and grace that defines everything she does. Mitchell knows the truth. Lucas does not. Not yet. Someday, when he is older, we will tell him the whole story. But for now, he just knows that Grandpa Harold loves him and that a very nice man named Dennis helped save his life. Mitchell and I are rebuilding our relationship, one conversation at a time. He calls every Sunday now, without fail. Sometimes we talk for an hour, sometimes just 5 minutes, but he calls. And I answer. Connie and I are not friends. We probably never will be. But we have reached a kind of peace. She sends me photos of Lucas sometimes. I send her a Christmas card every year. It is not much, but it is something. Last week, Lucas called me on FaceTime, bouncing with excitement. Grandpa, Grandpa, I hit my first home run. I looked at his face, at those bright eyes and that huge smile, and felt my heart crack open in the best possible way. That is amazing, Buddy. I am so proud of you. Dad says you used to be really good at baseball. He says you taught him everything. I glanced off screen to where I knew Mitchell was standing, listening. Your dad was a natural. I just helped him find his swing. Will you come to my next game, please? Wild horses could not keep me away. After we hung up, I sat in my living room, looking at the photos on my wall. Mitchell as a baby. Mitchell's first day of school. Mitchell at graduation, at his wedding, holding Lucas for the first time. 35 years of memories. 35 years of being a father. None of it required blood. None of it needed genetics. All it needed was love, and showing up, and choosing each other every single day. People ask me sometimes if I am angry at Connie. If I regret the years I spent raising a child who was not biologically mine. The answer is complicated. Do I wish she had told me the truth? Of course. Do I wish I had known from the beginning? Sometimes. But would I trade a single moment with Mitchell, a single memory, a single "I love you, Dad" whispered in the dark? Never. Not for anything in the world. Because fatherhood is not about DNA. It is about presence. It is about sacrifice. It is about holding a crying child at 3 a.m. and saying, "I am here. I have got you. You are safe." Dennis Lockwood may have provided the genes, but I provided the years. And in the end, the years are what matter. So here is my question for you. Who has shown up for you? Not because biology demanded it, not because society expected it, but because they looked at you and decided you were worth the effort? That person is your family. Blood or no blood, paper or no paper. Hold on to them. Tell them you love them. Show up for them even when it is hard. Especially when it is hard. Because that is what family really means. If this story touched you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And drop a comment below. Tell me who your person is. Tell me who chose you. I will be reading every single one.